Well, yeah, and Peter, we hear stories about, billions of dollars going in aid to various countries like Haiti, but very little of that actually getting through and winding up on the ground. So clearly, that money is going somewhere, but also some of this USAID money, it seems to have been used to do things, and they use sort of euphemisms like strengthen democracy and things like that, but which is really about funding opposition groups and trying to create political conditions that are favorable to not necessarily the U.S., but to a certain outlook that's very prominent within Washington around a very certain type of kind of restrictive liberalism.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there was a story that there was a nonprofit organization that dealt with LGBTQ issues that was laying off staff because their USAID contract was cut. The group was based in London. As far as I know, London does not need developmental aid. So it shows how far this has gone from its original mission. And it also shows the sort of political nature of a lot of this. I think a lot of Americans don't mind if you're trying to help people in poverty-stricken areas of the world develop and grow economically. But USAID has morphed far from that. It's also associated with a lot of political activities. The Haitian earthquake, for example. Hillary Clinton, as the Secretary of State, was in charge of reconstruction after that horrific event. A lot of that money ended up going to contractors who had Clinton connections. There were, in fact, emails that were sent by State Department aides to Hillary Clinton that said this contractor is an FOB, friend of Bill, as in her husband. And some studies show that more than 60% of the aid dollars that were supposed to flow to Haiti, actually never made it out of the Washington, D.C. area. They went to these developmental, consultancies that are based in the Washington Beltway. And of course, these consultancies are often run by political allies, former political aides, et cetera. So when they run around screaming and saying that this is going to lead poor people in the developing world to suffer, that is simply not true. What's going to happen is a lot of consultancies in Washington, D.C. are going to have to find a different line of business.
Well, that's the really fascinating thing, and I'm glad you talked about that because, you talk about draining the swamp, and that's one thing, but you're really talking about draining the money out of the swamp. And my feeling is that that this administration has worked out that USAID is the way that they have been enriching the political class in Washington. You even had a little bit of an exchange with Elon Musk on X, I think, this week about this. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, I posted the fact that, they're fighting waste, fraud, and abuse, but more importantly, that they are uncovering money laundering. And he, graciously responded and said, yeah, and they are squealing about it, which they are. And one of the cases we talked about USAID, I would go to the Environmental Protection Agency, which, Lee Zeldin, the new director, believes he's going to be able to cut 65% of the budget. One of the things that we talked about was Stacey Abrams, who was a candidate for governor in the state of Georgia. She ran twice and lost, but an important figure in the Democratic Party. Her organization received a $2 billion grant from the Environmental Protection Agency. The organization is called Power Forward. Here's the odd part. Power Forward was incorporated only a month before it received a $2 billion grant. In other words, this is an organization that has no track record, as far as we know, had no staff, no background. Here's the other interesting thing in context. When you look at the timing of that $2 billion grant, it came shortly after Stacey Abrams came out very vigorously in supporting Joe Biden in 2024, continuing to be on the campaign trail. There was a lot of pushback among Democrats saying he's too old, he needs to make room. Stacey Abrams came out forcefully in his favor. Within 30 days, her organization received approval for this $2 billion grant. And the other board of directors on this organization and the senior staff are all Democrats. They either worked in the Biden administration or on the campaign. So it's an example of how these slush funds operate. It's not helping the environment. It's helping feather the nests of political operatives.